So we are doing, frankly, very, very similar technology. It is contact lens material that's
Right.
on the surface of our sensor.
You have a 365-day CGM in the pipeline.
Very much so. It's active work for us.
And we're also working with many private insurers to try to expand that coverage in the United States as well. But
hello, it's Camille, no diabetic, your diabetes tech guy, and the chair is out, and you know what that means? It's CEO interview time, but with a twist, because today I'm not interviewing one CEO, I'm interviewing two CEOs at the same time. I'm always so excited about these interviews. Today we're talking all about the Eversense implantable continuous glucose monitor made by Senseonics. So it's a sensor that you implant in your arm, and we talk about the current 180-day version and their plans for a 365-day implant and beyond. So I hope you enjoy this video. Before I go, I want to make it absolutely clear that this video is not sponsored. And so I hope you enjoy my interview with CEO of Senseonics, the company behind Eversense, Tim Goodnow, and President of Ascensia, the company behind the Contour One blood glucose meter range, and Senseonics global partner, Rob Schumm. Enjoy!
Okay, thanks both of you for joining me. Tim, why don't you kick us off with giving us an overview of the Eversense CGM system? So if someone is watching this and they've never heard of an implantable CGM, how does it work? And give us an overview of the system.
Sure. So an implantable CGM to start with is very, very analogous to the transcutaneous or through the skin CGMs that people are probably very familiar with. That being that we provide a new fresh glucose result every 5 minutes, right? So from that, with the continuous data, of course, that gives you the ability to do trends, and importantly, for somebody with especially with type 1 diabetes, really be able to look into the future so you can manage impending hyper or hypoglycemia before you get to it. So from that perspective, it should sound very, very familiar. The big point of difference with Eversense is just that it's the implantable nature. And what we've tried to accomplish with that is to create a technology for people that have a long-term chronic disease where you can take some of the burden away. So our design is to implant it under the skin, which we've now been able to do with a sensor, and we're actively working on the long-term duration. So first generation was the 90-day product. Second generation, if you will, second step is the 180-day product, which is available in Europe. We're still working with the US regulatory folks to get that approved in the States. But the big focus in the research development and clinical team right now is on our 365-day product. So that's the evolution of the sensor, implanted under the skin with a professional insertion, and get all of that value of the long-term duration of the continuous results, but do it in a way so that you have less and less and less interaction with the sensors yourself. And it's one more thing that you can forget about as a person with diabetes. So that's that's really the key difference. It's a professional insertion, put it in and forget about it.
That makes a lot of sense. So actually, let's focus in on that process. So if we talk through the system, starting with the sensor, can you explain that process of the insertion? So where does it happen in terms of, is it a hospital setting, a clinical setting, an endocrinologist office? And how long does it take when it comes to time?
Sure. So the insertion procedure. So if you can think about it, the sensor is a rod conical shape. It's about 3 millimeters in diameter and about 18 millimeters long. So it's pretty small.
Mm-hmm.
It looks somewhat like a small cold capsule, if you will. And what we've done our clinical testing on is placing it in the back of the arm. And the reason that we chose that is because it's reasonable amount of real estate that's out of the area. Many times people with type 1 diabetes are pumping in the abdomen, right? So they'll do their quadrant rotation with their infusion set or injection sites. And we really wanted to stay away from that. And the feedback that we heard is, yeah, we'd like to have that real estate for other use if we possibly can. So we've placed it in the back of the arm where it generally is out of the way. It is done in a doctor's office. endocrinology office is most typical, although there are some other professionals that do it as well. The actual insertions are very quick. They're about 2 to 3 minutes, and the removal is about 4 to 5 minutes. Now, the prep and setup and so forth, it's about 25 minutes office visit to come in and do the entire procedure. But the procedure itself is the area is cleaned. There is a small amount of lidocaine that's given. The medical professional will make a small incision under that lidocaine. The sense is inserted, and then you close it up with some steri strips, some band-aids essentially, and that's it. You're done until your next visit.
And the idea is that the removal and insertion happens at your general health checkup with your consultant every 3 or 6 months. Is it usually timed like that?
That's right. You try to coordinate it so it fits in.
Calibrations. Can you talk about calibrations for the XL system? How many are required?
Sure. So we've submitted to the European body for once a day. Started out at twice a day. We submitted for once a day. And with the 365, we're actually working on a once a week finger stick. The thing we will never compromise on is the accuracy. And that's why the partnership with the folks at Ascensia and the contour meter was a great choice for us, because it frankly is the best meter for accurate finger stick readings as well.
Yeah, I've actually done a video about accuracy of glucose monitoring, because I think everyone assumes that your meter is accurate, but turns out it's not. So if anyone is interested, I can link that video up here. So the next part of the system, the transmitter. So I think instinctively, when someone new to this technology thinks implantable CGM, I think your assumption is that it's invisible, but actually there is the transmitter, which is worn on the body. So can you talk about the transmitter a little bit, and what some of the features of that are? I'm really referring to the on-body alert, which I'm very interested in, the vibrations.
Sure. So yes, what we opted to do is to implant, so it would fit into a doctor's office, to implant the smallest portion we can, which is just a sensing component with a antenna that we use near field technology to interrogate. So what the transmitter does is two things. It talks wirelessly to the sensor inside the body with near field. So the same technology that you use in your phone to tap and pay. Apple Pay, exactly. And then we talk to the outside world with low energy Bluetooth. So that's really all the transmitter does. The glucose is calculated inside there. So there's a microprocessor with the calculation algorithm that takes the light signal from the sensor, turns it into a glucose result, and then it is reported out every 5 minutes. So as a result, that gives you the opportunity, since you know right inside that transmitter where that glucose level is, that's where you can deliver alarms and alerts. And we put a vibratory motor in there for, frankly, discreteness. We also recognize in our clinical testing that it's actually a better way to notify somebody, especially if you're asleep, with an on-body vibration, right? You'll respond, you'll wake up better to somebody tapping you than actually a noise in the background. So, and that's worked out well. Our patients really love that, because it gives you an opportunity to get the notice, to be discreet. And although we all now have cell phones we carry with, you're not always on your body, right? So you can get an alarm that says, hey, there's an impending hypo. You can be in the backyard playing football, or you can be, upstairs doing the laundry and not have to carry your phone with you and still have the full functioning CGM. So that's been important for a lot of our users.
No, that makes sense. And I guess natural lead from that, I'm curious how I suppose your experience has been over the last couple of years as you've been rolling out Eversense, of first of all trying to explain to people with diabetes, but also healthcare professionals in the entire healthcare industry, that there's now this new product category, an implantable CGM. Something that Abbott had to do, for example, with a flash glucose system, because they were the first one to launch such a device. So, before you can move on to product-specific things, you need to explain that we're going to do things slightly differently now. How has that been like? Has it been, people have been surprised, excited, shocked? How could you describe it?
I would say that there certainly have been, a combination of different reactions to it. A couple of constants, obviously, in the time horizon that we've been talking about, there's been an incredible evolution of CGM. So we haven't had to do a lot of education to the clinical folks on the need for CGM. We focused on the implantable nature, and really for us, it's about long-term duration, as we talked about. So that, quite frankly, has been the explanation for the product concepts. And you're fundamentally asking a clinician and a user to make a trade-off. Do you want to go into the doctor's office and have the procedure done? And then when you walk out, you forget about that sensor. You never interact with it, right? It can just, it's invisible to you.
Yeah, no, that's perfect. So, Rob, Tim has been explaining all of this to the industry over the last couple of years. And then you thought, actually, they're doing something interesting. So why did you decide to partner with Senseonics, with the Eversense team?
Sure. Well, as you know, we've had a strong blood glucose monitoring portfolio for many years now. The Contour brand is our large brand, and actually the Contour Next strip is the #1 test strip globally out there. So we've long had a strategic goal to expand into continuous glucose monitoring. And we've looked at, and we continue to, we've looked at a number of different options here, and we have came across Senseonics. Certainly, we've watched it and seen it develop in the marketplace. But perhaps one of the most exciting things that we've discovered as we were exploring it is just how passionate patients are about this, and how much they love it, and how much even when necessary, the links they'll go through to be able to keep it or go or get it. And that was very interesting, especially during the last several months as there's been transition. That's a really promising sign that people really love this thing. And then even as we've taken it, as we've started to engage with customers and healthcare professionals on the topic, we continue to get that feedback, and that's a very exciting type of product to be engaged with. It helps us provide further value to people with diabetes.
And are you confident in that the partnership will work? Because I know in the past you have had a different CGM partner, PocTech, and that partnership hasn't quite worked out. So are you confident that Senseonics is a valuable partner here?
Well, that was the relationship we had before was a very different type of partnership. That was a development agreement. In order to explore new areas, you need to look at a bunch of different ways. And this is very different because this product has been developed. It is approved. It's on the market in the United States and in Europe. And it is demonstrated through numerous clinical studies the ability to be able to do what it needs to do. So very different dynamic there. Our job is to make sure that this is a commercial success. And that's something that we feel very confident in our ability to do. We have a very strong footprint in Europe, in BGM in particular. We can call on very many of the same customers to be able to get the leads that are needed to be able to make people aware of this product and to train healthcare professionals on how to make this available to their patients. So we're very confident about that. It's a very different proposition.
Yeah, it's a very different time in someone's journey, someone's CGM product journey. Yeah, you're absolutely right. So if I have the list, you relaunched in Germany, Switzerland, Italy, Spain, Netherlands, Poland, and the US under the partnership. So on a high level, if someone was using the Eversense product under the previous distributor in Europe, for example, under the new partnership, can they expect the same clinics, the same healthcare professionals who were inserting them before to be doing those procedures today? Or have you started building your own new network of inserters, if you like?
So in those countries that we've launched, absolutely. We've picked up as much as possible. We've been able to go back to the same healthcare professionals who have the experience and now be able to take over the servicing of that. So yes, that's the case, but we're also looking to expand that and bring new people online, new healthcare professionals, and new new doctors with the insertion capability to be able to expand the usage there in Europe.
So following on from that, I guess this is a question to both of you. So whoever wants to answer that one, feel free to jump in. How has that insertion journey been over the last year or so with COVID, social distancing? Obviously, it's something that's quite difficult to do with someone inserting something in your arm. So any of you mind sharing a little bit about how that's been going?
We have, frankly, a world-renowned chief medical officer in Dr. Fran Kaufman that,
I'm a big fan of
joined
her.
us. Yeah,
Yeah.
she's been fantastic for us and in helping us drive the organization to where we should be for people with diabetes. So we used expertise like her to get it out and really train on the procedure.
So do you mind sharing what the different procedures, I guess, that you guys implemented as a result of COVID, social distancing? Just if someone with diabetes is thinking, okay, a health professional will not be able to obviously social distance during the procedure. Do you mind saying what protocols have you implemented as a result of that, if any?
We implemented a number of teletraining procedures for doctors to actually do the certification.
Just to add to that, I mean, this clearly is a product that you can't do remotely. You do need to go into the office. But I think what we've experienced is that certainly as this pandemic has extended, that people have started going back to their physicians. People start having some of these procedures. There are precautions being put in place. So and we are continuing to expand the engagement with patients directly so that they can get they can hear about the product, and then when they're ready to go into the office, be able to pick that up. But we are seeing procedures still happening, and it is moving forward. Although would be optimistic that will expand and open up once people are vaccinated and once people are really back in full life again.
Makes sense. And I must say, I do advocate for vaccines if anyone is listening and is wondering. Had my first jab a couple of weeks ago and feeling great about it.
Great.
Actually, Rob, on that note, I want to briefly mention access because I think it's important to mention as someone living with diabetes. So on a high level, again, because there are many regions and many different private healthcare insurance, public insurance company like NHS, for example, public systems. But on a high level, if someone was covered for Eversense previously under the Ascensia distribution, they can expect similar coverage.
Yes, that's right. So we do have broad coverage in all those countries, and it will continue whether was Senseonics selling a product or making that available, or us. So that is certainly the case in Europe, and we're also in the U.S. There we have fairly broad access there as well. For example, we have 61 million Medicare beneficiaries out there in all 50 states under Medicare Part B that do have access in that area. So, and we're also working with many private insurers to try to expand that coverage in the United States as well. But on balance, certainly there was nothing missed, not a beat missed in terms of the reimbursement with the transition.
Sounds perfect. Okay, cool. Let's move on to closed loop partnerships, hybrid closed loop systems. At the moment, is this something that you guys are working on? Is this something that you realize it's becoming a much bigger and bigger part of the diabetes space, and people with diabetes are incredibly interested in the space?
Absolutely. Obviously, for people with type 1 that are pumping, it's here and now and important. I'll give you one more line to draw. We have announced our partnership with Beta Bionics. We've already done the early clinical testing, and you can see the publication was very, very attractive results. So that one we've announced. The next big step for us is really driven by, and it's an opportunity, the ICGM designation by the Food and Drug Agency in the United States. That gives us the open opportunity, if you will, to have the partnerships with the other pump companies that you showed in the U.S. So we are first focusing on the 180-day approval of the base product, if you will, in the U.S. And then we'll look for the ICGM designation behind it, and that'll give us access to the U.S. regulatory approach, which is streamlined, and that'll open up the other opportunities with the other pump companies that you've shown there. So it's very important. We recognize it, and it certainly is in our future.
So just to clarify, so the iLet partnership they announced a long time ago is still going ahead, and Senseonics Eversense system, CGM, will be integrated with that
That,
system.
that's correct. We're working on it. We showed the early clinical results.
Perfect. And Rob, from your point of view, as a really established, contour meters, how you guys have multiple pump partners. Is this something that you're also hoping to contribute to get more closed loop partnerships for the Eversense system?
Yeah, absolutely. This is really the perfect type of CGM for a hybrid closed loop system, and there's certainly a ton of interest there, and we see that the demand will absolutely be there, and that iCGM as an enabler will be really key for accelerating that.
Yeah. So let's talk about. Let's move on to future, and we already mentioned a number of things. So let's maybe let's go in the order. So you already mentioned, Tim, you already mentioned the 180-day system for the US, and you expecting clearance for that hopefully sometime this year.
We're in both key regions. So we've submitted it. Our notified body is BSI. They have the full technical file, and it's under review. And similarly, we've done our PMA supplement submission to the FDA in the US. And our expectation is that we will have those during this year. Now, COVID has impacted review, as you know, but we hope that as the vaccine penetration gets bigger and there's less and less additional strain on the global healthcare systems, we can get back to some normalcy of regulatory reviews as well.
Tim, you already mentioned you have a 365-day CGM in the pipeline.
Very much so. It's active work for us. We have human clinical testing that we are routinely doing. We're pretty exciting about the results that we're seeing. It does unfortunately take a little bit longer, as you can imagine. 365 days is, and you can't accelerate it, right? You can't do 12 of them in a month. And it's our expectation that we'll be looking to start a trial later this year on the 365-day configuration. So that's the next big step for us, of course. And then once we have that 365-day chemistry, there's quite a bit more that we're going to do to make further advances on the system.
And Project Gemini?
Sure. So we've talked about the Eversense approach to internalizing the sensor, right? That was the first concept. Instead of going through the scan or instead of taking a sample out, let's put it all the way in. So the next step for us is to do the same thing with the transmitter, right? As I said, the transmitter's job is twofold. One, it powers the sensor, right, through near field energy. So the NFC, the Apple Pay that you referenced technology. And two, it communicates with Bluetooth to the outside world. So those are the two technologies that we are working on right now for what we call the Gemini project, like the astrological sign Gemini. It has two sides. We do really feel that once we put the battery inside of it, now that will make it a little bit longer. It won't be any thicker, but it will be a little bit longer. That will give us the ability to not need to use the near field technology anymore. We can replace the antenna that's in there with a battery. And then we're working on the Bluetooth technology for an implantable version of that. So it would go right to the phone, right? So then instead of using the transmitter with near field to wake up and power every 5 minutes, you do the same thing with an implanted battery. And then communicate it right out to the phone with the implanted Bluetooth. So similar conceptual. First, we implanted the sensor because it was a smaller component. Now we're going to work on implanting the Bluetooth. And where the Gemini comes from is, quite frankly, is we recognize that product can be used either continuously, right, for a person with type 1 diabetes. But think about all your related cousins that don't have the autoimmune disease of type 1 diabetes, but they have type 2 diabetes. They still want to know where their blood sugar level is, but they may not need it as frequently as continuous, right? So if you're not on insulin, you'd love to be able to just get, the glucose readings, maybe on some predetermined regimen. In the ADA in the US recommends that a person with type 2 diabetes have 4 glucose readings a day,
Mm.
right? And we could, for a person with type 2 diabetes, you could pre-program that so it just reports those 4 glucose readings to your phone every day, and you don't have to do anything with it. So just an implanted sensor, no on-body transmitter. So it can work as a CGM, as you know and love today, for a person with type 1 that needs that, minute by minute management, or at a more macro level for a person with type 2 diabetes. So, we see that as a much broader solution, and that's the next step, all doing that on the 365-day chemistry that we talked about. So that's the progress that we're making. That's the vision that we have, is to get to that fully implanted world for the one-year sensor.
That just sounds mind-blowing to me. Especially, it just seems kind of impossible to implant a battery so that it lasts for a year. That's
Well, don't
crazy.
tell that to people with cardiac pacemakers, because they implant them for up to 10 years, right?
Oh, really? Is that
Yeah,
right?
that's right.
Okay. Yeah. And another part of kind of future pipeline, I don't know if this is something that you have been considering. What about actual implant sites on other sites other than your arm? Would it be possible to just implant it on your wrist, for example, and have your watch work as a transmitter?
That's very funny, because when I actually started at the company, the original concept was to do just that.
Right.
Put it behind the watch. Um, it certainly is a potential, but when you think about available real estate, even if you were doing it once a year, that's quite a number of procedures that you want to do, and it's
Yeah.
not as if you've got the top side of the wrist, or on the lower part of the arm, if you will, where you wear your watch. You're certainly not going to touch the other side, because there's too much vascular material there for you to interfere with. So we actually moved away from it for discretion, and there was a phase, until the smartwatches came, there was a phase when people just stopped wearing watches, and they were doing all of their phone checking on, time checking on their phones. So watches have now come back in the last couple of years, but things go in and out of style. Exactly. As you showed, right, that has Bluetooth in it, right? So in the implanted transmitter that I talked about, whether we sent a Bluetooth signal to your cell phone or to your wristwatch, it wouldn't matter, right? So you'd have the same thing when that technology gets here.
Thank you so much for going through that. That's really insightful, actually. And just to close off, Rob, any exciting things that you guys are working on when it comes to the contour meters? I mean, CGM technology is super exciting, but blood glucose monitoring is still the main method of checking glucose for millions, for majority of the diabetes community. So anything that you can mention that you guys been maybe working on?
Sure. Well, certainly, for getting Eversense, making that a success is one of our top priorities within the organization. But we are continuing to develop our blood glucose, our traditional blood glucose monitor. We're known for high accuracy and ease of use, and so we are working on continuing to develop features in the meters to be able to improve on both of those dimensions, and for the connectivity, to be able to continue to use the Contour Diabetes app, and make that as simple as possible, and get that use more broad. There are a number of people out there who still just get a number, right, and look at the data from it, but or look at that result, as opposed to really using the power of that app that it gets sent to be able to make informed decisions based on that. So it's not quite as much detailed information as CGM provides, but actually a number of BGM data points can give you a lot of information as well. So we do think that it's important for patients to have choice, and to be able to serve a broad population of people with diabetes with different needs. So that's one of the other things that we're excited about this partnership, and what it brings to the portfolio that we can bring to our customers.